7 o'clock, so we'll begin our meeting. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Hinson.
Thank you, Mrs. Goodburn. I have several things to share with you this evening. As you can see, exciting things are happening. In the Shawnee Mission School District, the National PTA named Belinda, Marion Park, Rising Star, and Indian Hills as schools of excellence. These schools are among only 124 in the entire country to receive this honor. And so this honor is given to recognize commitment demonstrated by PTAs and school leaders who work together to help students and schools succeed. So congratulations again to Belinda, Marion Park, Rising Star, Indian Hills, 4 of 124 in the country. We congratulate this year's Shawnee Mission seniors who are honored in the 2016 National Merit Semifinalist Program. Next month, you will be a part of a reception for these outstanding students who are competing for more than $32 million in scholarships. The Kansas Department of Education honored 2 of our Shawnee Mission educators who exemplify the best of the teaching profession. In fact, Laura Brogdon is here tonight. Laura, you want to stand and wave at us tonight? We appreciate you being here. Laura's a math teacher at Shawnee Mission West, and also Ann Soba is a 5th grade teacher for us at Neiman. We appreciate everything that they do to make the world a better place. I'm also pleased to announce to you that our enrollment is up. It's the largest enrollment increase since 1992 in the school district. And so as we report out our enrollment, as you know, we have this wonderful September membership count to the state. So as we report out our elementary enrollment, I have the elementary breakdown, which you'll find, I think, interesting. So we take all 33 elementary schools, and we have the average class size by grade level. So,
Sure.
yeah. And so I'm sure you can all read that, so, but I'll read it to you. How's this? So for the school district, our average class size in kindergarten is 20.02. In first grade, it's 20.08. Second grade would be the winner at 19.39. 22.32 in third. Fourth is 23.32. Fifth is 22.49. And sixth grade is 22.91. So certainly our efforts to drive class size down is working in the Shawnee Mission School District. But again, think about it in this regard. So last year and this year, our enrollment is up equivalent to an elementary school population. So we need to think about it in that regard. So when we were here 2 years ago, we would be an elementary school size less than we are currently. So certainly a positive trend.
Dr. Hinson, excuse me, is that chart going to be available on the website?
We will make that chart available. Be mindful, it changes daily, as enrollment changes daily. So it's certainly not uncommon for us to change several dozen students throughout the district on a daily basis. But we will make that available. We're announcing today the changes to the 2015-2016 school district calendar. You've already approved those changes this last month. These changes are updated again on the website, communicated out to all of our communities and families. And so there are some changes there that we think will be beneficial to everyone. Dr. Southwick's going to talk to us a little bit about a construction update. We have a little bit of construction going on. Dr. Southwick?
Well, the good news is we've had a lot that's gone on. And we have a lot of work that's just down to normal punch list kinds of things, the very small things that sometimes it's difficult to get contractors to come back to do. But Bob Robinson and his staff are working very hard on that every day. So our elementary projects with our kitchens and our safe and secure entries by and large are open, and there are small things that we're trying to finish those contracts with. Just as a reminder, until all the work is done, we don't pay the contractor all the money, so that does give us a little bit of leverage to have them come back. Shawnee Mission Northwest Weight Room is complete and I think utilized. I saw a picture of it the other day that was tweeted out and it looks very nice. We have construction at Shawnee Mission South that's complete, particularly our 18 to 21 program, which was very fast work and remodeled to move that program. It's completed. At most of our high schools, although we're a little bit behind, again, it's really down to, we've had problems with glass, and I think nationwide contractors would tell you that. And just some punch list kinds of items there as well. Our 2 turf fields that we have that need to be completed, I was told this afternoon that in about 15 days, or on October 14th, we hope to have North Stadium completed, so those students can begin to use that practice facility. And we're a little bit farther at east because of some complications, and we think that will be around November 1st. So, but both of those facilities will be completed and very nice. Center for Academic Achievement, we were able to obtain from the City of Overland Park a footings and foundation permit a few weeks ago, I think we reported, and they've been working fast and furiously, trying to work themselves out of work. I did receive notice today that we believe either tomorrow or the next day we should have our full permit on the Center for Academic Achievement. Crestview, we have the full permit from Merriam. So we're moving forward on that. We are still working on some of the bid items for that particular job. We will be bringing to you tonight footings and foundation dollars so that we can begin on that. Even though we have the full permit, we're going to work on those. Those numbers are good. Continue to work with our architects and J.E. Dunn to bring those numbers down. And Trailwood and Briarwood, we had a great groundbreaking at Briarwood the other day. Very well attended, great day. Had, I think, 572 students is what they reported there that day. So we're underway there. We also have tonight some approval for you to allow us to begin as soon as we get those permits to start on footings and foundation as well. So a lot of work to be done. I spent time with Bob today, actually him showing me the list of things that we're going to tackle for next summer. So the summer we had this summer will be equal to next summer in terms of the amount of work we're going to do. So things aren't going to slow down for a while in the Shawnee Mission School District till we get this work done. So nothing alarming. It's all good in the Shawnee Mission School District, and we're just trying to make it a little bit better.
Thank you, Dr. Southwick. I do want you to note that from an administrative perspective, we're not ready to roll it out to you yet. We are working on a TIF policy, tax increment financing policy for the Shawnee Mission School District. We have been asked to weigh in on the proposed or in progress TIF policy for the City of Overland Park. And so we've been working with council and others on our TIF policy. And before too much longer, we'll be ready to share the first draft with you. It is interesting to note, I think in the last 2 days, we've received 4 additional TIF notices within the Shawnee Mission School District boundaries. So we'll work on putting that policy in place. We are extremely close. In fact, we're just dotting the final I's and crossing the final T's with the City of Lenexa in relation to our memorandum of understanding for the Aquatic Center. And so we've agreed to all terms and conditions. And so we're just making sure, again, that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And so we're in a great place in relation to that facility, and you'll see that final document here in the very, very near future. That's all I have for you this evening, Mrs. Goodburn.
Okay, thank you. All right, on to special presentations, which is C, and we have C1, a presentation on Healthy KC, and I believe Jessica Hembry is here to present to us tonight. Oh, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. I'm Jessica Hembry. I'm with the Healthcare Foundation of Greater Kansas City. And aside from being involved with the Healthcare Foundation, I am a mom of James, right here, who is a kindergartner at Trailwood. You might have heard him very excitedly say, "I was there and that digger actually worked." He was very excited to come home that day and share with me that he was part of the ribbon cutting. So thank you all for all your work on that. Scott, do you want to do a quick intro?
Sure. And I'm Scott Hall, Vice President for Strategic Initiatives with the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, and the proud dad of a second grader and a kindergartner at Belinda Elementary, a school of excellence. So thanks for all you do. Thanks for having us here.
So we're here today on behalf of Healthy KC. This is an initiative that is running through the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce with support from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Greater Kansas City. In my role at the Healthcare Foundation of Greater Kansas City, I am heading up the Tobacco Action Team, which is part of the Healthy KC effort. And we're here today to speak to you about a policy issue that we are hoping to see percolate throughout the Kansas City metropolitan area called Tobacco 21. And I want to set a little bit of stage for why this is an important issue, not only for the metro, but also why it's a particularly important issue for all of you as people who are interested in the K-12 K-12 education system here in Kansas City. So youth and teen smoking in Kansas is right around 10.2%. I'm going to draw out a couple key statistics here that I think are of interest. What we know is that young people begin experimenting with tobacco products around the age of 12, which is an alarmingly young age for people to begin experimenting with tobacco. But the important thing is that between the ages of 16 and 21 is when that experimentation becomes regular, daily, addicted smoking. So of people who are alive today and smoking adults, 95% of them started smoking before the age of 21. That makes this crucial window between 16 and 21 a very important time for us to make sure that we do everything we can to prevent youth initiation of tobacco. Not only, and when I say tobacco, I don't just mean cigarettes, I also mean e-cigarettes. As I'm sure many of you are well aware, this is becoming a much more popular phenomenon, particularly with young people. We do know that young people get their primary source of tobacco is going to be their peers. And in the Shawnee Mission School District, on graduation day, 80% of seniors are over the age of 18. So imagine that that is one of your best pipelines into the school system today is those kids who are over the age of 18 and seniors. They are the pipeline for tobacco products into our high schools right now. I wanted to share, since we talked a little bit about e-cigarettes, because I find this entirely fascinating. This is just a handful of the incognito e-cigarette and vaping devices that are available online. They're meant to look like pens, hoodies, Altoid boxes, markers, even asthma inhalers can be retrofitted to be vaping products. We've heard from lots of school districts and lots of folks around the community that they have a really hard time keeping these out of schools because they are so hard to see sometimes and so well concealed. So a couple other reasons why we think this is an important policy issue. We know that young brains are developing. All of you know that as well as anyone out here does. The youth brain up until the age of around 25 is very, very flexible and malleable, and that's a really dangerous time for youth to be exposed to tobacco and nicotine products. They're particularly vulnerable to addiction. So our core principles are that we are interested in restricting the sale of tobacco products to youth over the age of 21, and that should include e-cigarettes and vaping products and other alternative products that are out there right now. And if you're anything like the chamber and I think others, when we first heard this, we thought, interesting idea, is that really going to catch on? And the answer is yes. There are now 94 cities in 9 states, including the state of Hawaii, that have all enacted Tobacco 21 policies. To date, 13.8 million people are living in communities covered by Tobacco 21 policies. And I think the biggest reason for that is that they are successful. They work. Needham, Massachusetts was one of the first communities to enact Tobacco 21. They did it in 2005, so we have a lot of data to look back on with Needham, Massachusetts. And when we look at tobacco control, we generally think that when we fund programs that'll see a 15 or 20% reduction in prevalence, that's a good investment. But these Tobacco 21 policies over time have shown a 50% reduction in youth smoking. That's an incredible, incredible impact. These are very popular with public opinion polls. Interestingly, we find that adult smokers tend to be just as favorable to Tobacco 21 policies. Many of them report a real sense of regret that they ever started smoking in the first place, and they're in favor of any policies that'll keep young people from heading down the same path they did. And this is just a handful of the many endorsements we have to date. We're up to 45 endorsing organizations and have big plans for the last few months of this year to get this policy in front of various cities throughout the metropolitan area. But what we know is that a lot of them care a lot about what the K-12 education system thinks. So we would really appreciate your support and your authorization for staff to sign on and endorse this effort. And we're happy to take any questions you have.
You can call on me. Okay, thank you. I think this is a great initiative. I would like to see cigarettes out of our high schools, and I know when we have 18-year-olds in our high schools, we have a lot of cigarettes in our high schools and for kids that are a lot younger than 18. I know that you furnished us with a resolution that we could endorse tonight. We can certainly have, discussion by the board here, but I would be very much in favor of endorsing that resolution for you tonight and have the Shawnee Mission School District stand behind that. But I will open that as my opinion on that. I think we've had a copy of that resolution for us all to review. Don't know if there's any other discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I
Sure.
appreciate that. We do have a tobacco policy here that we have no tobacco on our property, e-cigarettes included. And I don't know if you're aware of that policy
No,
or
that's
not.
wonderful, yeah.
And it, sometimes when people get agitated during sporting events, it's a little bit difficult to enforce, but it is enforced. I would recommend that we put this on next month's agenda so that we could have possibly the public weigh in on it. If I know that we've had the resolution by email, but it hasn't been a part of our agenda. So that would be my recommendation.
Anybody else want to weigh in?
I would, I think you know this. The Shawnee Mission School District covers 14 municipalities.
Right.
And while I think we are a sort of a quasi-governmental institution here, most of this ordinances and things are promulgated by the cities.
Sure.
And so I would presume you're taking this to each of the cities throughout Johnson County as well. And it's a process, and I'm sure it'll be successful. But thank you for coming. We think it's great.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we have plans to, I know you were very involved as a state representative with the clean air efforts in Kansas, and we're following much the same map that some of that work took. So there's a handful of communities in the metro area that were really leaders around clean air, and we're expecting them to also be leaders around this Tobacco 21 policy. So many of those are in Johnson County, and many of those are part of the Shawnee Mission School District, would feed to the district.
I would agree on having this come back on an agenda so that all of our patrons who look at agendas and are aware of what we're doing, so if they have any feedback, and I think it'll all be positive probably, they don't necessarily read our policies, but I think this will be something they're interested in.
Okay, thank you. And I would be remiss while I'm up here if I didn't say thank you to all of you for your leadership, particularly around all-day kindergarten fees, because I would have been paying those like this week. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have Shawnee Mission Education Foundation, Linda Roser.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Goodburn and board members. I'm going to take some time to celebrate this evening. So first, I want to thank Dr. Hinson, Dr. Leanne Neal, the communications department, the tech crew, the teachers, and the student performers for an amazing production at the fall breakfast. What a phenomenal celebration of Shawnee Mission's successes and the exciting future ahead. For those watching tonight who were not able to attend the breakfast, I just want to let everybody know that the State of the District is posted in its entirety on the district website, smsd.org. You have to scroll down, and on the left side, you'll see featured activities, and it's available there in full. So thank you very much. As you've heard over the last few months, the foundation has the privilege of participating in many different kinds of successes. I want to introduce you to what we call an enrichment scholarship. We are all familiar with college scholarships, even given at graduation. An enrichment scholarship invests in students in our schools now to help them pursue their educational goals at the highest level now while they are in Shawnee Mission, and potentially open up greater scholarship and career opportunities when they graduate. So tonight, I am very pleased to introduce you to Alice Barnard, I knew I was going to blow it. Alice Barnard. I even wrote it phonetically in Still Blue. So Alice, come on up here with me. So, and to announce that the foundation awarded Alice, a senior at Shawnee Mission North, a $1,000 scholarship through the Johnson Fund to take advantage of an amazing educational experience this year. This past summer, Alice attended a camp at the Lyric Opera of Kansas City. Subsequently, upon audition, Alice is one of only 10 students metro-wide invited to participate in the Lyric Opera's High School Honors Artist Program. The staff at the Lyric identified Alice as an extraordinary talent, and I'm quoting here, "All of our voice teachers hear her and go, 'Wow, that's a huge instrument in there.'" This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that prepares Alice to be career-ready through professional voice training, auditions, introductions in the world of performance representing the Lyric. Making dreams come true. That's a great celebration for the district and the foundation. So congratulations, Alice. And Alice has some guests with her. Would you like to introduce your guests?
Yes, I have with me tonight Principal Richard Prairie, Julie O'Mealy, the choral director, and my mother, Jeanette Warpenjek.
Congratulations to you. What an experience. Wonderful. All right, C3, we have a presentation on the Meadowbrook development by Prairie Village Mayor Laura Wasmer.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to join you tonight. I want to introduce a few other people who are with me tonight. We have Wes Jordan, who's our Assistant City Administrator. We have Jeff White, who is our Financial Advisor with Columbia Capital. Jory Nelson, Council Member, who I believe you all know. And I also saw a member of Parks and Recreation out there, Johnson County Parks, Jill Geller. I realize that we are competing with the Chiefs game, so we're going to try to keep our comments as brief as possible. I realize I may be biased, but I believe Prairie Village is a unique place. We have very high standards, and we strive for transparency and open dialogue. And in fact, we like to refer to the way we treat our residents and the way we do business as the Prairie Village way. And in that regard, we started meeting with Dr. Hinson and Dr. Southwick about a year ago when we first started talking about Meadowbrook, because we wanted to make sure that we were being very open and transparent, and we wanted to keep them in the loop. So we've met with you all, I think, about 5 times over the past year to discuss Meadowbrook. So it's exciting for me to have the opportunity to bring this update to you tonight. We know that it's not one thing that attracts Prairie Village residents to Prairie Village. It's a combination of a lot of different things. It's quality housing, it's our parks, it's our beautiful tree-lined streets, it's our shops, local vendors, good restaurants, public safety, and yes, quality education. But all of those independently are not significant. It's the sum of that total that really makes Prairie Village special. And so it's with that global view that we try to make decisions about how to reinvest in our 64-year-old city to keep it vibrant for the future. We believe that TIF is an economic tool that, when used properly, is a great long-term investment for everyone, and it provides results which would not happen otherwise. Now, the key here is the word properly. Unlike other cities, Prairie Village has only used TIF one time in 64 years. And that was with Brighton Gardens, which is a senior living facility located at 71st and Mission Road. So I wanted to spend just a minute and show you how that investment turned out. So Brighton Gardens, before Brighton Gardens, there were 15 single-family homes in that location. And we were receiving about $5,753 for the school district from those 15 houses. We estimate that if those original houses were still there today, the school district would be receiving $13,918 on today's values. By using TIF and by taking down those homes and putting in Brighton Gardens, the school district is now receiving $90,613 annually. So you can see, in the long term, that was a great investment and really paid off for the schools. In terms of economic development, we know that quality, thoughtful reinvestment in the community spurs more development. We've seen that with our shopping centers. By using the CID and increasing the vibrancy of those shopping centers, attracting new tenants, attracting new restaurants, you can see that our sales taxes are up significantly in both of those centers. The reinvestment in those shopping centers has also spurred the redevelopment of the houses that surround those shopping centers. I'm sure you've all noticed there are many homes that are being torn down around the Village Shopping Center. There are remodels that are happening around both of those shopping centers. And then that reinvestment spurs the reinvestment of many of our office buildings. CarBank just bought and redid a building on 75th Street. It was a very old building, very much needed to be reinvested in. And because they reinvested in that building, it attracted a world leader in steel and synthetic cable and rope manufacturing. This is the world headquarters of Wireco. They brought 167 high-paying new jobs to Prairie Village. Average salary is about $130,000 a year. They are projecting revenues of $850 million in revenue. One of the main reasons that they cited coming to Prairie Village was because of the vibrant shopping centers that gave their employees places to go and shop and places to go and eat. So you can see that all of this reinvestment continues to bring more reinvestment, and that brings more money to both the city and to the school district. So that brings us to Meadowbrook. Meadowbrook Golf Club has a long history in Prairie Village. It shut its doors last fall, and it sold all 138 of its acres to the Van Trust Real Estate Company, which is owned by the Van Tile family. This property is currently zoned R1A for low-density, single-family homes, and the developer has the ability to proceed in that direction without getting council approval. We think that carving that land into single-family lots would be the worst mistake we could ever make if there was an opportunity to save this green space for generations to come. And fortunately, Van Trust has given us that option. As you can see, the proposed park property at 88 acres is larger than all of our other Prairie Village city parks combined. We've got all of those laid out into what will be designated as public park. In addition to the 88 acres of park, this property includes the development of 57 single-family homes, 68 townhomes, 240 market-rate apartments, 330 senior living units, 35 hotel rooms that are part of a boutique inn, and 5,000 square feet of retail space that will primarily be at the base of that inn and also around the senior living facility. The next few slides will give you an idea of the feel that the developer is trying to create, sort of a European feel. So these are some renderings of what single-family homes might look like on that property. There will be several lakes, as you saw in the first slide, that are in the center of this property. Those will be public lakes that will be maintained by Johnson County. And the thought is to have a fairly seamless plan where the property, the park property, sort of fades into the single-family residences and the inn, so that it all feels like it's one piece of property. This is an example of the luxury apartments that they're going for. The parking will be internal, so the apartments will be wrapped around, so no external parking will be seen. And they're looking for luxury, like I said, very high-quality apartments in this location. Here's an idea of the inn, again, rather European in its feel, overlooking the lake. And the thought is that that inn could be used for wedding receptions or other events. There will also be redevelopment of the current country club. Thank you. The clubhouse into a community center, not to the extent of a Matt Ross type community center, but more of an activity center. And that is another area where we believe wedding receptions or other events could be held. These are some examples of the townhomes. So in terms of a proposed timeline, we did start a year ago. We're well on our way. Tomorrow, we in fact have a park planning open house. I'm sure Jill could give you more information about that if you're interested. That will be held at the Meadowbrook Country Club. And then we have many hearings and many other things that we have to accomplish by the end of the year. So we are on a rapid timeline. The point of this is to ensure that we can take advantage of attractive interest rates and also strong market conditions. We're afraid that if we wait too long, any of those factors could change, and that would definitely affect the financials of this project. We are incredibly excited about this project for both the short and the long-term benefits it will provide, and we've been overwhelmed with public support. In fact, we had over 800 residents attend our first public open house. We've received no negative comments so far, which is almost unheard of. So next, I would like to invite Jeff White to come up. Jeff is going to talk more about the financial pieces of this. He is our resident expert. He's provided us with our project projections, and he has also been able to assess the risk for the city.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff White, and I'm a principal with Columbia Capital Management, which is a registered municipal advisor. My firm regularly advises state, regional, and local governments in the Midwest and around the country, including with respect to economic development incentive proposals. The proposed Meadowbrook Park property is very different from the usual tax increment financing district that we see. Typically, the benefits of TIF inure to the developer and serve to increase its expected rate of return from the project. In this case, the financial benefits of the TIF will inure to the public to acquire parkland, to develop it, and to build infrastructure to serve that new park, streets, lighting, stormwater. Every taxing jurisdiction in Prairie Village will participate in the financing of the project, including the state, Johnson County, and Prairie Village. And each will benefit long-term from the substantial private investment proposed from this unique site. As we work through the preliminary planning for the TIF, we recognize very early on one key potential issue that would impact the district and all other taxing entities in Prairie Village. With the exception of the public portion of, with the public portion of Meadowbrook being purchased by a governmental entity, the new park would come off the tax rolls, and the taxing entities would potentially lose the base property taxes being generated by the golf club today. Excuse me. Including the roughly $60,000 per year being collected by the district each year. As a group, we agreed that this would not be the right outcome and have structured the TIF to protect these base taxes for the district and all taxing entities over the life of the TIF. Put another way, the district will be no worse off financially because of the creation of the TIF at Meadowbrook. As we recently described to your staff, if development at Meadowbrook proceeds according to expectations, we do not expect the TIF to last the full 20 years permitted by law. And because the development plan here is predominantly residential, it is very likely that the uses constructed over the next few years at Meadowbrook will continue to be relevant and productive from a tax valuation perspective long after the TIF expires. We think the benefits to the district could be substantial. From about $60,000 in property tax income today, our modeling projects that, following completion of the TIF, the district would see, all things being equal, more than $1 million in annual property taxes from this project. As the mayor indicated in her remarks...
Jeff, can I stop and
Sure.
ask a question there? I think that number is misleading. The 1 million, I'm assuming, includes the 20 mills from the state.
It's 55 point whatever mills is your 2014 levy.
So including the 20 mills from the
Yes, sir.
state? Okay.
Yes,
Which
sir.
goes to the state, not to the Shawnee Mission School District.
And the 60,000 also includes that 20 mil amount as well. So as the mayor indicated in her remarks, the project as planned would not happen without the TIF. And without the TIF, we think there are two likely alternative outcomes for the Meadowbrook property. One is that the project becomes entirely a public park, and the value to the taxing jurisdictions is reduced to zero. Or two, Meadowbrook be developed as single-family homes, which you heard from the mayor earlier is currently permitted by right and could occur without any sort of additional involvement or permission from the city. With the single-family alternative, however, sewer remains a challenge, and our expectation is that estate lots with septic systems would be the most likely outcome, given the challenge and the cost of renegotiating reentry for the project into the sewer district. We modeled this likely non-TIF single-family development as well, and rather than the $1 million per year, caveat noted, generated for the district for the post-TIF proposed development, we'd expect an outcome roughly 1/4 the size. So whether you include the 20 mills or you take it out, the proportionality remains the same. We certainly recognize the financial impact that TIF has on school districts in Kansas and in other states. We do believe, however, that no other reasonable alternatives exist that, number one, preserve 80+ acres of Meadowbrook for use as a public park in perpetuity, and two, permit the planned development to occur, and three, provide sufficient incentives for the parties involved to participate. The city believes so strongly in the importance of this project to Prairie Village that it anticipates pledging its general obligation support for about $10 million in TIF bonds issued to support the project, despite the fact that it will not actually own the park long-term. We know you have a busy agenda tonight, so with that, I'm going to close. The mayor and I would certainly be happy to try and respond to any questions you might have. And on behalf of the city, we thank you very much for your support of this important project for Northeast Johnson County. Thank you.
Question?
I have a
Deb?
question. Thank you. It looks like a beautiful project, definitely. Would be a nice asset, I'm sure, for Prairie Village. It's unique, I think, in the park portion of this and the kind of the different residential aspects to this as well. And we are, as Dr. Hinson mentioned earlier, we're trying to get our brains around a TIF policy of some kind so that we have some groundwork to kind of work from to go forward with the TIFs, because we seem to be having a lot of them now. You've only had one other one in your city, but all of our 14 cities, that offers us quite an opportunity to have them come our way. So I guess my question to you is, because of the park and because of granting this land to the county, to the Johnson County Parks and Rec, was there discussion that you had with them about the Parks and Rec actually purchasing that land as a part of that area of that TIF? I don't know who that goes to, either to the mayor or to Jeff. Or.
So we did have those conversations, and I think it's a logical question. And what we heard from JCPRD was that within their current budget, they had the ability to take the maintenance of this park on without any additional trouble. But that if we wanted them to purchase the property, they would consider putting that in their capital program, but it might be a number of years before that bond issue would go to the voters. And that uncertainty, I showed the slide earlier where we looked at the different partners involved. Mm-hmm. The development partner is a partner that has capital at risk and has an expected rate of return from its equity providers. And that was a risk that they were not willing to entertain to wait that long. So again, each player involved here has specific needs, and in that particular case, we had a partner that might have considered that in JCPRD, again, subject to voter approval, but we also had another partner, the developer, the owner of the land, that wasn't willing to wait another 2 to 3 years to find out whether that was going to be feasible or not.
So that wasn't a viable option, or?
Correct.
I'm just curious as to those conversations.
I might add that we are estimating the annual cost of this maintenance, just the maintenance part of the park, to be about $300,000 to $400,000 a year. The city of Prairie Village cannot take that on. As you saw, that's the size of our entire Public Works budget as it relates to parks. So we would have had to have doubled our staff, et cetera. So that was a trade-off we were willing to make. We were willing to purchase the park, help get paid back through TIF and the bonds if Johnson County would take over the maintenance of that. That also involves millions and millions and millions of dollars on their part down the road. That building, the clubhouse, is 35, 40 years old. There have been several people who have taken a look at that professionally, have said that building either needs to be completely gutted and redone or probably torn down. So the county is willing to take on the clubhouse down the road, which is millions of dollars. There's going to be a lot of additional improvements that will need to be made to the park down the road, which will be millions of dollars. So we feel that it's a fair partnership. Yes, we are willing to, take the financial brunt up front to ensure that that property remains parkland, because like Jeff said, the developer is not ready to wait. They are not willing to wait and lose the current interest rate environment and the strong market conditions. So they're ready to go now. They were putting the pressure on both the city and Johnson County to figure out a plan to make it work so that they could get going.
Okay. And maybe I don't remember this, but was there phases of this, and what comes on first to this development?
I'm happy to tackle that. It's effectively done in one single phase, we expect. So the higher density components will be constructed first. The piece that could potentially take the longest would be the single-family development, and that's, as the developer indicates, that's going to be market-driven. Single-family economy is very strong right now, particularly at the level that they expect to price these homes. If those conditions persist, we'd expect a pretty quick build-out. But I would expect the dense development, the senior housing, the apartments, to go up very quickly and to be on the tax rolls very quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Cindy? Or Mrs. Moore?
I know that, and I used to live in Prairie Village, and I know we've closed some schools, and that has provided some parks in Prairie Village. Actually, off of Row down the street, there was a school down there.
Porter.
Mhm. And that came from one of our old school buildings. My question is, have you gone to the county commissioners, because they've got the money to purchase that parkland? And my only problem with this, and I've talked to some of the commissioners, and they know that money is there and can be done. The issue is, why would a school district buy a park? Because that's basically what we're doing by giving the TIF on the park. I mean, that's providing the money, turning it over to the park. Is that correct?
A substantial component of the TIF proceeds will be used to acquire the park. That's
Right.
correct.
Okay. Why would a district buy a park? Because that's in essence, I have no problem with the rest of the project, but I do have a problem with the park.
Well, I guess I would disagree with your characterization a little bit, but let's just take it for a moment. And I would say this to answer that question. The bargain for the school district is, yes, you are giving up property tax income, but you're giving up property tax income that would not otherwise exist. And so the bargain for the school district is, not only does the community, which includes all of your patrons, get to benefit from the single largest park in Northeast Johnson County, and something that has been on Johnson County Park and Recreation's radar for a long time as a community need and a community desire, but you get $150 million of private investment in this property that will come on the tax rolls in very short order. And I mean, you all know homes last for a very long time. We're not talking about retail storefronts that may be there or may not be there. I think one of the key strengths of this development versus a retail strip center is, you know, that when this thing comes onto the tax rolls, when the TIF rolls off, that those homes are still going to be there. They're still going to be producing property taxes, and they're still going to be a viable economic engine. And that's really the bargain for the school district, is you're giving up tax income today with the promise of getting an investment that's going to produce way more tax income down the road.
What's to say that something couldn't be built on where the park stuff would be, and that would provide a tax base?
That's a great question. So the key thing is that in the 1950s, the owners of Meadowbrook signed a deal with Johnson County that said, if you don't charge us sewer fees, we will promise not to ask to be in the sewer district. And they had a giant golf course, so who cared? They didn't need sewer for that. So here we are today, many years later, and we're presuming that all of the homeowners and folks in apartments and things would like to be able to flush. And so one of the key bargains for the county in this is that when the county sewer district built the downstream infrastructure from Meadowbrook, they didn't contemplate 650 units of housing in this area. And so one of the major costs on the developer side that's going in to make this happen is to pay Johnson County Sewer District multiple millions of dollars in order to make that infrastructure downstream large enough to accommodate that additional flow. And so again, everybody has a piece and a component, and there's certainly some shared sacrifice, and I understand that. And keep in mind that we recognize that the school district is giving up property tax income for the next 16 or 17 years, and hopefully it's shorter than that. The city's doing the same thing, and the city will be plowing snow on those streets and, you know, paying the fees to KCP&L to keep the street lights lit, and mowing the medians and all those things that a city government has to do. So certainly the city recognizes that there's financial impact to the district. There's also financial impact to itself. Johnson County itself is participating in the TIF as well. Again, it's now larger mill levy would be captured by the TIF as well. So again, this is a very challenging mix of public-private partners involved in this transaction. County with respect to wastewater, county with respect to parks, city, which has the power to do TIF within Prairie Village, and the private developer that is going to find a way to get a return on its investment in that property. And they wanted, and they've been very open about this, they want to do a signature development here. They want to do something that's more special than 30 or 35 estate-sized single-family lots. And that's certainly something that the city wants, and it's something that the district should want long-term, because we want to maximize the utility of that property from a private development standpoint to build our tax base to keep teachers in the schools and kids well-educated.
Mrs. Mack?
Why does, I've got a couple of questions. I used to live in Prairie Village as well.
So did I.
So there we go. Well, you know, I love where I live now. Why does a city in Johnson County, who has some of the most eloquent or most rich, the wealthiest zip codes, have to have a TIF? And who is paying for the infrastructure?
Well, let me answer your second question first.
Okay.
So there's both public infrastructure and private infrastructure in this park, and maybe I can find the map and help you out here.
No, I've seen the map, so.
Okay, so within the public portions of the development, which includes the east-west road, transecting road, and that portional north-south road as well, that public infrastructure, street infrastructure, stormwater infrastructure would be paid publicly. It's going to be paid for out of the TIF proceeds. The infrastructure within the privately owned components of the property are going to be financed privately.
Okay. And the answer to the first?
And the answer to the first, I'm sorry, ask again. My
Why would a
apologies.
city like Prairie Village, which is
Oh,
a
why not just
fabulous
pay
city,
for it, and why not
has
just
the
pay it for
wealthiest
itself?
zip codes in Johnson County, some of them, why does it need to TIF this development?
I think for Prairie Village, there's an equity question for it as well, which is, why would it, it's two parts. Why would it pay for a park that it's not going to own and it's going to be available to all Johnson Countyans? And then you say, okay, I solved that problem by giving the parkland to JCPRD, right? So then why would the city choose to take that parkland it could pay for and give it to JCPRD? And the mayor answered that question. The maintenance costs of that park property alone would effectively double the city's cost to maintain its entire park system today. So the city's not willing to take on the maintenance cost of that, and as a result, it might not purchase this park on its own. Again, everybody has wants and needs in this particular transaction, and there's some history here as well, I think, with respect to what Prairie Village taxpayers have said in the past.
Well, my easy answer for you on that is we don't have $6.5 million to buy this park. Prairie Village doesn't have the money to do it. But we want to preserve this parkland. So we have a dilemma. If we want to preserve the park, and we've got the ability to preserve the park because the developer has given us that ability. They came to us and said, we want to do something really special. If you don't want to do this, that's okay, because we're going to go ahead and just develop it into single-family lots, which we can do without ever coming back to you. You all don't want that to happen either, because if you look at the projected revenues of what that provides you, it's nothing. It's peanuts compared to the long-term payoff of this. We also see that. It's the long-term payoff for the city as well. But bottom line, why do we need a TIF? Well, if you notice, we don't need a TIF that goes back to the developer. That is what is so different about Prairie Village compared to the other 14 TIF applications you're receiving. The other applications you're getting from the cities puts money right back into the developer's pocket while taking money out of yours. Ours is not doing that. The developer is paying for all of the developer costs out of his own pocket. The TIF is paying the city back for the purchase of the parkland. We have to issue bonds. We're borrowing money so that we can buy this property so that we can start this project now. Again, Johnson County isn't in the position to come up with $6.5 million to purchase this park now. They would probably have to go to an election. The developer's not willing to wait for that. So it allows us to borrow money. It allows us to issue a TIF, which then pays the city back and also helps us go ahead and put millions of dollars into the park and the public infrastructure, the roads, the streetlights, everything else up front, so that we can get this project off the ground and start getting repaid back. That's what's in it for us. That's why we're doing the TIF. It requires a partnership. Cindy, your comment to me indicated that you thought this would happen without a TIF, and it won't. This project will not happen without the TIF.
I've spoken to a couple of the commissioners, and they said the money is in the park budget and that it can be paid for. Now, that's what they believe. So I don't know who doesn't know.
Well, I'll let Jill answer that,
But
since
I
she's
know
with
that-
Johnson
I
County
know that there are
Parks.
commissioners, and I talked to them last week, and they said at that point, there was money and the county should purchase it, not the school district, which basically is we're giving up the TIF money.
income you don't have.
Well, maybe we'll get income from that part of it.
Good evening. I'm Jill Geller, the Executive Director of the Johnson County Park and Recreation District. Thank you for letting me be here. Well, I think I need to talk to the commissioners that you're talking to. We absolutely do not have that money in our budget. We did get an increase in our mill levy. We have a new strategic plan that was just completed, which targets projects that are currently in need. We are 60 years old this year, so we've got a lot of aging infrastructure, and I know the school district can sympathize with that. We have $365 million of needs over the next 15 years, and our increased funding covers about 67% of those. So we don't have additional money for land acquisition. And in our strategic plan, there is not land acquisition to acquire new parks. We do have, for complete transparency, we do have some small land acquisition dollars available to help increase our streamways. If we can find small parcels of land that can increase our streamway trails throughout the county, but we do not have the funds for large land acquisitions. And if I might, while I have the microphone, just share with you, a lot of people don't think of parks as economic engines, but we recently had a study completed by the Trust for Public Land that shows the economic benefits of Johnson County Park and Recreation District. And I don't need to tell you all, parks that are located within proximity of parks are valued much higher. As a matter of fact, parks within 2,000, or homes within 2,000 feet of parks are valued up to 20% higher than those that are not. So that does increase property values. We increase air quality, water quality, public health, and most importantly, parks make Johnson County a place where people want to live, work, and raise a family. So to me, this project is the perfect intergovernmental cooperative project. We all have a financial stake in this project, but our goal is to make a park that is beautiful, that brings people to our community, that raises the property values of the homes in its proximity, and benefits all of us down the line.
While you're here, help me understand one piece, because I really need to understand this. I believe Mr. White, correct? He said that this was the only viable option was for Johnson County Parks and Rec. That as soon as Prairie Village owns the park, then they're going to give it to Johnson County Parks and Rec, and that was the only viable option. And you have stated that Johnson County Parks and Rec does not have the budget to purchase this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is Johnson County Parks and Rec the only entity in Johnson County that can purchase land for a park that will be eventually administered by Johnson County Parks and Rec? In other words, the Parks and Rec Department is an entity that is part of the Johnson County and covered by the County Commission. Mm-hmm. So are there other options available, like undesignated funds, that can only be authorized by the commissioners? So that I'm having a hard time understanding why Johnson County Parks and Rec would be the only viable option to purchase it.
I am aware of no undesignated funds in the county budget, if that is your question.
Or funds in the county budget that can be used to purchase this land, rather than what's specifically in your budget.
I can't speak to that. I don't have everyone else's budget in front of me, but I know that listening through the budget process, there were no unallocated funds in the budget.
And I'm not sure who this question, maybe this is Chris or the mayor. I think all along we've said this is a unique project. I agree with you with respect to that. One of the things that we have talked about and will probably appear in our TIF policy is an opportunity to share along the way. Right now, the formula that's used by developers or cities or whatever entity it would be is generally around 100%. And the first time we hear developers or cities come to us, this project does not work unless it's built on 100% capture of the property tax and the sales tax to make it work. That's just a matter of formula. So we're likely to create in the upcoming months, similar to Overland Park, some restrictions with respect to what we'll consider the new formula to be, if we're going to consider that TIF. Having said that, from day one, we've known this is what it is. I mean, I think I will agree you've been very transparent with that along the way. One question that I have is respect to the length of the TIF. Again, districts, as they move through with TIF, school districts can benefit from TIF, and I would agree there's the halo effect. Also an opportunity to share along the way, and whether that's a 25% share of the property tax or 50%, or there are some TIFs in the area that are 100% sales tax. Obviously, not much sales tax on this project. That does not apply. But some of the projections, Chris, were based on a 1% increase in assessed valuation, which I think is very conservative. It's not a bad way to present it, but it is very conservative. What happens with TIFs is that even though they could have projected payout of 16 to 17 years, with your conservative projections, it could be much less than that. It could be 10 years. And in 10 years, that money rolls off and it comes to the school district. But this is the caution and this is the question, and I guess maybe a commitment from Prairie Village, if we go through with this, is that it is not uncommon that when those original debts are paid off, for an entity to look inside that district and re-spend that money that could be captured over the full 20 years. And I know that there's a piece of I think, retail and business that's been carved out in the TIF. And I'd really like to know if there are plans to stop this thing when the original debt's paid off, or are we going to extend and continue to capture that money over the life of the 20-year TIF?
I appreciate the question. So, with respect to sharing along the way, one of the challenges for the city is you heard me say that it's going to issue $10 million of bonds that it's backing with its own property tax guarantee. And certainly one of the messages that I have heard loud and clear as a consultant to the city from the governing body members is we want out from under this obligation as soon as we possibly can. So the design in this particular case, where we do look to capture 100% of the property taxes that are generated, are intended to do exactly that, to get the city out from under that obligation as quickly as possible. The reason that, of course, we're using conservative projections of future assessed value growth is we're actually modeling against some of that future assessed valuation growth that we expect in order to give us the largest pie at execution of this TIF as we can get, so we make sure we've got enough to buy the parkland, to build the infrastructure, and to put as much money as we can into the development of that park so it's a super park out of the gate. If we over-project on that, then we could find ourselves short where the city would have to appropriate out of its general fund in year 9 or year 10, or levy additional property taxes to do that, and obviously nobody wants that. As we have gone through the question of what happens to TIF surplus at the end of each year, so we're going to issue bonds at the outset of this project, and those bond proceeds are going to pay for all of the TIF eligible costs that are going to be authorized. Again, park acquisition, public infrastructure, park improvements. It's also going to include capitalized interest, because we're going to issue bonds in February or March and not have any income until 2018. You all know full well how that property tax cycle impacts you. The same rules apply to us here. So we're going to issue those bonds. We're going to hope the revenue comes in, but we're obviously not going to anticipate spending every modeled dollar of property tax income in debt service. We're not going to put ourselves in the position where we're 1-to-1 each year. We're going to leave a little bit of cushion. And so the conversations that we've had with the governing body so far have been solely and completely around taking any of those excess dollars that come in each year and making them available to pay those bonds down as quickly as we possibly can. We've had zero conversations at all about if there's excess in 15 or 20 years, what else can we spend it on? So we would expect that the project plan that comes to us, once the district is created, to look much like you've seen here, to include only the TIF eligible costs that we've talked about. We will finance all those with bond proceeds. We'll issue the bonds, we'll pay the bonds off, the TIF will go away, and the city is every bit as motivated as the school district is, because it's got 20-some mils at stake in property tax income from this district as well to come on the tax rolls, or to come at least to its general fund as soon as the TIF is complete.
So as the final deal is developed, because what we're talking about right now is the finalization of the district itself, and the
Correct.
actual deal, although it sounds like it's mostly prepared, will come after that. Lots of hearings, lots of input from the community. is there any way to structure this TIF so that it says upfront and transparent that any excess will pay the debt, and once the debt's paid down, the TIF will close? Because we're making decisions today for a lot of people that don't sit around the table, and that they may say, well, we have that money available to us, let's just go ahead and use it for another 5 or 6 years or 7 years. I think that violates what we talk about tonight, unless there's an opportunity to have that crafted. I'm not trying to do your job for you, Ms. Mayor, but if we can, you know, again, the assurances to pay this thing off and move away from it.
I have every expectation that that's what you'll see in the structure of the TIF and the structure of the development agreement between the city and the developer.
Just want to point out quickly, the one TIF that we did do for Brighton Gardens, that was a 20-year TIF. It was paid off in 8 years and retired. Gone.
Good for you.
That's how we like to do business in Prairie.
Mayor, let me make sure I'm correct on this. The TIF district boundary, it is different than what is on the map before us. Is that accurate?
There is one TIF district with Project A and Project B. And Project A is the development that you see, the Meadowbrook development. Project B is the retail shopping center that's just south there, so the corner of 95th and Knoll. There are no plans currently to use TIF there, but we've set up the district just in case. That's an area, I've been on the council for 17 years. It's an area we've wanted to see redeveloped for as long as I've been associated with the city. Nobody's done that. We have, I believe, 13 or 14 separate owners there. It's a very difficult area to redevelop. So we're also hoping that something might happen there. So it's being set up as one district, 2 projects, Project A, Project B.
So let me make sure the board understands that. So really 95th to Knoll. So what's being talked about with this development is the Meadowbrook plan. However, the 95th to Knoll, that is also in the TIF district. And that goes to Dr. Southwick's question, because we are dealing with that currently on another TIF in a different city in the Shawnee Mission School District. The actual development paid off early. However, they had a large TIF district. And so instead of closing that TIF, they took those revenues and applied it to the remainder of the TIF district. That can't happen when a TIF district boundary is created.
We don't believe that's the appropriate way to use TIF.
I won't ask that question. So if it's not the appropriate way, you establish the TIF boundary only for the Meadowbrook development, and it prohibits that from happening in the future.
No, what that means is when that project, if there is any redevelopment that is going to happen in that area, it can come to council without us having to go through the whole hearing process again and setting it up as a separate TIF district. It's a very cumbersome process. As you know, it takes a lot of hearings, a lot of time, et cetera, et cetera. The thought is we can go ahead and set it up. We may never approve anything. Any ideas would have to come before the council. So we can determine exactly what is or isn't done in that area, what amount of TIF would be allowed or wouldn't be allowed. So we haven't really set any parameters on that whatsoever, but I can tell you the intent of the city is not to do what you just referenced, and that is when our TIF ends, we believe our TIF ends.
So right now, no plans to commingle dollars back and forth
None.
between those projects?
None whatsoever.
But you need to understand as a board that has been our experience in the Shawnee Mission School District. We have- Not in Prairie Village, but in other
That's
cities
not the Prairie
where that
Village
occurs.
way.
Okay.
Mayor, we want you to know, too, we are not anti-redevelopment in any regard at all. We just have to look ahead to what students might be generated from your project here and the tax dollars that we won't be having come in regard to that. So you have to be very careful, and this is a very unique one indeed.
I have one question for the park lady.
I'm sorry.
The park lady.
Come on down, Jill.
When
Jill
you
Geller,
say-
park lady.
The park lady. When you say that there is no money, how are you going to pay for the maintenance and upkeep? They've expressly stated how much that's going to cost, and they can't afford it on a yearly basis. Where's that going to be in your budget? Because you said you have no money.
That's an excellent question, and I will tell you, this park's a priority for us. We very much want to see this happen, but we did not have the dollars to acquire it. But through increased assessed valuation for the last couple of years, we have seen an increase in our budget. So when we went through the budget in 2015, and knowing that this project could, this is 2014, and knowing this project could possibly come down the line, we took dollars from our increased assessed valuation and earmarked them for the ongoing maintenance of Meadowbrook Park
So how are you going to sustain that?
through increased assessed valuation.
If that doesn't happen, how are you going to maintain that?
We will find it in our budget, just like we do for every one of our parks. It is a priority for us, and we're committed to the maintenance and operations of it.
Thank you.
I hate to belabor this, but I've got just one other question. What constitutes the infrastructure improvements that you'll have, that you as a city will do? I see a series of lakes that look like they are more maybe infrastructure improvements rather than simple amenities. You've got some streets and some other stuff. Can you kind of walk me through what goes into the infrastructure improvements that are authorized by the TIF?
Yeah, you nailed them, actually. So
Okay.
the ponds that you see there, if you think about Meadowbrook now, or Google Map it later, actually already exist, but are smaller, and they serve two roles. They're a nice amenity for a park, and certainly for the folks that'll live there, but they're also effectively a stormwater detention basin. And so one of the components of an area this size is, the stormwater management rules have changed significantly, as you all know, from your construction going on, and we're not immune to that here. And so those lakes, making them deeper and larger is a significant cost item that will be financed, and that's a public infrastructure component. The major east-west roadway that transects the park, and then the kind of half transection from north to south along the townhome there is also public infrastructure as well. We do expect to have some access to 95th through the commercial area, and you can see that connection at the very southern end of the park there, right above the words potential access. We're working actively. I didn't mention this particular partner, but there's a private landowner there that we are working with to get a portion of his parking lot to allow us to create a public street to connect 95th so that we have both good circulation for residents, but also good connections for fire protection as well. Okay. And then there are underground utilities in the public rights-of-way that go along with this, as well, street lighting, all those kinds of things, the normal stuff that goes along with public streets, sidewalks, and those types of things as well. So pretty straightforward kind of traditional municipal public works types of improvements in this. And you can imagine none of that exists today.
No. But it does seem to me that then the maintenance allotted to Johnson County in the first year or so is really just that part of the Meadowbrook Park that's north of this development. It seems to me that you turn the infrastructure improvements over to a contractor to maintain while he's got it under contract and doing the work, wouldn't you?
Well, we're actually having ongoing discussions about who's going to do what. We have one of the unique components of this residential nature of this is the design vision is to have blurred boundaries between public and private from the perspective of a homeowner. So my lawn ends as the park begins, and I don't really know where one of those begins and ends. Legally, it matters because the city doesn't mow privately owned property, right? So it may be that the privately owned property ends up mowing a portion of the public right-of-way because it's just more convenient and less expensive to do that. So we're not really quite that far into the weeds yet. We started a conversation along those lines with Van Trust relatively recently and decided that we were getting too far in the weeds, not to use a pun. But,
and I probably am too.
And then, but clearly the city will have Those will be public streets. They'll be dedicated as public streets. 15 years from now, they'll need to be resurfaced, and 30 years from now, they'll need to be completely reconstructed, and all along the way, they'll need to be plowed and street swept and all the other things that cities do to keep their streets
Yeah,
up.
my only observation is that as you take the series of smaller ponds that exist now and you create the vision that you have on the drawing, that's earthwork construction. That's a contractor who has control of that area for a specific time to do his work.
Yes.
And so that's the person responsible for, quote, maintenance at that point. When he's finished his project and turned it over, then I would think that part would become the
Completely
county,
agree.
city, homeowner, whatever.
There's also a very complicated question going on. We're going to have construction going on, publicly owned, city maintained, city owned, JCPRD maintained, JCPRD owned, privately maintained, privately owned. Everybody's going to be building at the same time. So we've got a lot of conversations going on about cross easements and who's going to buy insurance for what, and do we have a single contractor, and what kind of bidding requirements do we need, and
so when you sell GO bonds to find the money to pay Van Trust to then turn the park over to Johnson County, does that get a little fuzzier too?
it doesn't. From a bonding standpoint, the IRS is indifferent whether one governmental-owned entity owns it over another.
Okay. So it's not like a home mortgage. I have to own my home to have a mortgage.
Correct. And on GO bonds, there's no pledge of assets.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to D1, which is procedures for open forum. Let me read this. We do have somebody to speak tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and read this. At the beginning of each regular business meeting, the Board of Education provides an open forum as an opportunity for public comment on school district issues. Agendas are published in advance to notify the community of the topics under consideration. Patron comments are welcome. Those wishing to speak to an issue not included in the agenda will not usually receive a response during the meeting. The board president will place a time limit per speaker on open forum remarks. If a group has comments, the spokesperson should be selected to speak on behalf of the group. All right, so we have a speaker tonight, Mr. Charles Hammer. And we only have one, so take your time. 5 minutes?
Much time, but I am Charles Hammer, 4829 Black Swan Circle, Shawnee. Tonight I want to talk with you about the many shopping centers subsidized by school money that are dying or dead. That includes the Johnson County Giants, Metcalf South, and more recently, Great Mall of the Great Plains. The Kansas City Star said the Great Mall, quote, started to stumble soon after opening. By 1998, the mall was suing tenants for back rent. Do you remember the strip mall built on a high hill in Miriam and brand new, immediately went broke? It too was subsidized with your school money, then was bulldozed to make way for IKEA, also heavily subsidized with your money. Sometime drive through the very large strip mall on the northeast corner of 75th and Quivira. It's also moribund, about 24 shuttered stores with dark windows. There's also that sad former Kmart Sears store south of the Antioch Library, dead. Many years ago, the shopping center with Macy's went broke, never yet to be rebuilt despite offers of gifts from the Shawnee Mission School budget. It's called Mission Gateway now, a big patch of dirt and weeds. This is happening all over greater Kansas City. Tax giveaway projects like Indian Creek Mall, Bannister Mall, Metro North, Antioch Center, all dead or dying, most wanting yet more public money for revival. Surprisingly, I saw in the Stars 913 just last Wednesday that Mission Gateway wants your money to build 300,000 square feet of new retail. Surely it's only a coincidence that on the next page, the Star said another project will also build a similar 300,000 more square feet of retail. Don't forget Central Square, the proposed replacement for Metcalf South, which wants your money for 177,000 more retail square feet in just one store, plus the failed former Kmart French Market site north of 95th Street with still more retail. All the Central Square developer wants is 20 years free of taxes, plus the take from a 1.5% sales tax within project boundaries To that total, some developers even demand the city's 1% share of the state sales tax, and no wonder. Johnson County has far too much retail. These new projects must be propped up with taxpayer money just to be born, not to say survive. Meanwhile, with the advantage of taxpayer funding, they may kill off older stores that have always paid their full tax bill, like Little Hartman's Hardware with 7 decades on the Shawnee Square, or Miriam Feed Lawn and Garden, more than 60 years old now. Competition, incidentally, is the word most often used to justify tax giveaways. Ostensibly, we give away this money to win the competition, attracting business and jobs. Rarely, in such cases as Sprint, Garmin, and Cerner, or I must say, in the case of Wireco in Prairie Village, as the mayor said, there is real competition among cities and states. In those cases, the companies usually offer jobs with decent wages. Perhaps they are worth bribing. But mostly our tax giveaways go to subsidized strip malls with stores like Walmart. This is the richest, most populous county in Kansas. Would no one build strip malls here if cities stopped bribing developers with tax increment financing? That's ridiculous. Johnson County is where the shoppers live. If Walmart were not bribed, would the company turn up its nose at us shoppers? Against what are we competing for these strip malls? Missouri sites many miles eastward? Our city councils often call their tax giveaways public-private investment. Indeed, the public invests, but the private businessman owns the whole thing. We citizens pay higher taxes to fund his police and fire protection, schools for his employees' children, street repair, snow plowing in winter, libraries and parks, and access to a community college. Great deal for him, not for us. You Shawnee Mission School Board members know by now that you have the power to stop this insanity. I quote the Kansas law: "No privately owned property subject to ad valorem taxes shall be acquired and redeveloped under the provisions of KSA 12-1770 if the Board of County Commissioners or the Board of Education levying taxes on such property determines by resolution adopted within 30 days following the hearing that the district will have an adverse effect on such county or school district." Our experience in Johnson County says, of course, this is the way it has always been done. We use our school budget to build shopping centers. Tonight, I'm asking you to do what the law tells you to do. Stop letting cities take your education money and spend it on strip malls. Thank you.
Okay, on to E1, approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Thank you, Ms. Bisfield. Thank you, Ms. Seela. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay, on to F1, which is the adoption of the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Denny. Thank you, Mrs. Mack. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. On to G1, which is approval of routine business by consent.
I would move approval for routine business by consent.
Thank you, Ms. Zila.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Neighbor. Any discussion at all? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries 6-0. Okay, that moves us down to action 01. Okay. Dr. Henson?
Thank you, Mrs. Goodburn. 01 is an action item in relation to an agreement between the school district and the NEA of Shawnee Mission PAT. As you know, as we entered into an agreement with our teachers, we followed up negotiations with our parent educators, and this is the agreement we've reached with them.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Move approval.
Move approval. Dr. Denny?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Neighbor. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right. Dr. Henson, 02.
2 is a recommendation to approve up to 20 days of the sick leave assistance bank for one of our employees, one of our teachers in the Shawnee Mission School District.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mack. Thank you, Mrs. Bisfield.
And I would just like to, discussion, I'm really, the Shawnee Mission Northwest community has really stepped up and also helped this family in many ways, and I just wanted to give them a shout out.
Any other comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay, on to Q1.
Q1 is mandatory change of policy for us. It is in relation to what we call ESI, or Emergency Safety Interventions. It's a statutory change, and so we have to make the changes or amendments, if you will, that are contained in the policy change.
So move.
Thank you,
Second.
Dr. Denny. Thank you, Mrs. Bisfield. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Q2?
Q2 is the same. It's a requirement for us, so it's what we call mandatory. So it's a change in relation to our board policy, GAOE, workers' compensation.
So
Move
moved.
approval.
I'll take Dr. Denny, and
I'll
second.
second.
Ms. Bisfield, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Down to the board financial report, S1.
Well, this is the report for August, so it's only the second month into the fiscal year, and so it's very early, but we're right on target where you would expect with revenues and expenditures for the fiscal year at this point in time.
Any comments or any questions?
Oh,
No? Okay, all right, so then we're on to T1, board comments now, Mrs. Mack.
Thank you, Mrs. Goodburn. While Mr. Robinson is still here, I just wanted to compliment O&M. The landscaping on the buildings is looking terrific, and, you know, I know we've had a lot of rain and everything, but it's a big, big job, and I just wanted to compliment you.
Any other board members have comments? Dr. Denny.
I move that the Board of Education recess to executive session in order to consult with our attorney on matters deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, discuss matters relating to acquisition of real property, and discuss matters concerning security information and procedures. The meeting will reconvene at 9 o'clock. No further business will be conducted following the executive session.
Second. Thank you, Mrs. Mack. Okay.
All in favor?
And you got to vote.
Have to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Donna, or Deb, or whoever said that.
Okay.